Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Oh, now it's our time for our main speaker, Casey.
Thanks. All right, my name's Casey. I'm an alcoholic. And I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be sober. I want to thank Jeff for asking me to come here and participate. And I want to welcome the new people to Alcoholics Anonymous, the people that stood up and announced that they were new. When I was new in my home group, you didn't do that. You just raised your hand, and that was all I could get it together to do for a while. And so congratulations on the faith and courage it takes to stand up and say your name and say what your disease is. My job as the main speaker here is to share my experience, strength, and hope, and essentially to talk to the new people. I'm not going to tell people that have been sober a while, like Max and Matt and so on, that anything that they don't already know about. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. It's changed my life in every way worth talking about. And most of the people that I care about, most of the people that I talk to on a daily basis who are my friends, almost everybody is a sober alcoholic, because it turns out that I love alcoholics, drunk or sober, and I feel at home when I'm with alcoholics. I feel more connected than I do the rest of the time. I don't know if home is exactly the word for it, but I guess it depends on your definition of home. You know, Robert Frost defined home as home is that place where when you have to go there, they have to take you in. And I can live with that definition of Alcoholics Anonymous, because if you stood up and said, you know, you want to be here, we can't kick you out. So you're home. Welcome home. I really do, without being too smart alecky about it, hope that you find here what the people that have been sober a long time have found, which is a whole new way to function in the world in a more comfortable, more productive, and more comfortable way than you have before. And like our first speaker, Kit, it was I identified with a lot of what she said, and a lot of those things go away when you get sober. All those little felonies, most of the car wrecks, most of those nasty head injuries. You know, I had all those things, and grand mal seizures too. I certainly did not start drinking with that in mind. The first drinking that I remember seeing was, I was born in Huntington, Long Island, New York. My granddad was an illustrious lawyer and publisher, and he would have people out to his place on the South Shore of Long Island on weekends, and these people were the movers and shakers of their day, and the chief economic advisor to Eisenhower and people like that. I didn't care who they were. If they could play croquet, you know, I'd have them as a partner or something. But I saw what happened to them at 5 o'clock at cocktail hour, when somebody would ring a little bell, just like the bell that gets rung here. As you know, it's time for people to run to the liquor cabinet, salivating, and have their Manhattans and martinis and that. And I associated right away drinking with money, property, prestige, success, and the good life. And I knew that I would drink someday. Well, We moved around a few times. I got polio. This was before the Salk vaccine. I was crippled. I couldn't walk for about 9 months. When I went back to 3rd grade, I was shunned by the other kids, and I didn't like that, you know. And so I felt different. It's a common theme in the stories of alcoholics that at some time, somewhere along the line, whether it's all at once or a gradual thing, we feel that our case is different, that somehow we don't fit in and so on. And that was the case for me. My younger brother and sister weren't allowed in the same room with me because I had an incurable disease. And when I went back to school, you know, I wouldn't speak even when I was spoken to. I really deliberately set out to be a loner, weirdo, Martian, outlaw geek, and succeeded beyond my wildest dreams because I became a real outcast on purpose. I was like a hermit trapped in the world, and that's the way I felt. And the way that I survived was I got into reading. I got into a world of reading books, and I read at least one book every day, cover to cover, that wasn't a school book from around that time. And in fact, I started keeping track of what I had read, and I kept little notebooks of what I read that day. And from the time I was 10 until I was 17, when I left home, I wrote down what I wrote, what I had read that day. And this is compulsive, you know, this is obsessive, this is... So I got to Penn State. I was there about 10 minutes. Somebody shoved a can of beer in my hand. It was Schaefer's of Philadelphia, the beer to have if you're having more than one, was their jingle, and I had 2. And I got bombed on 2 cans of beer because I was in shape to run cross country and track and all of that. And I went back to my dorm room, passed out, and when I woke up, I realized if I was ever going to fit into this world at all, I was going to have to learn how to drink. And I got into training with drinking, like everything else that I was ever any good at. And in a couple of months, I was not throwing up on myself or my dates. All of a sudden, I had a social life, and alcohol had done it. And I felt like I had arrived. Like, this is more like it. Things are going to be okay now, as long as I can go down to the Rathskeller at happy hour. And you know, if you asked my parents, why is this whelp in college, they'd say something like, so he can be self-supporting through his own contributions. If you asked me, I would have said, I'm here to run the mile, because that was the glory event in those days, and I was good at it. And one day in practice, I ran a 4:07 mile, and that was fast for somebody that just turned 18. And an assistant coach came up to me with his clipboard and said, Casey, at the rate you're going, you will inevitably break the 4-minute mile within the next year. And I'm pretty sure you'll be the youngest person in history to have done that. Keep up the good work. Attaboy, we know you can do it. And to this day, I remember exactly what I felt and thought when he said that to me. He knows I can do it. I know I can do it. Everybody I run against knows I can do it. I don't have to do it. I'm done. And at the end of that season, I never ran competitively again, because, you know, it was like the Catholic version of sin. You know, you thought about it long enough and hard enough, you may as well have done it. You're going to burn in hell for it anyway. What the hell, you know? We're going to be wading around up to our knees in cigarette butts and empty beer cans. What's the difference? And, you know, you don't need a hell of a lot more than that. You know, funny things are going to start happening. And I bounced around a little, and I wound up in Youngstown, Ohio. Youngstown at that time was known as Bomb Town, or Little Chicago. Had nothing to do with me, but somebody handed me a stick of boo or reefer, we called it back in those days, and I smoked that dopey giggle weed, and the next day when I woke up, I didn't have that much of a hangover. The only part of me that hurt was my cheeks from cramping up from laughing so hard, and I'm loyal to the things I like, and I probably smoked it every day for the next decade or so, no big deal. And just like when I found out about terpene hydrate and codeine when I was at Penn State, I tried to corner the market on it, you know. And but weed was a felony, and if weed wasn't such a bad thing, maybe some of these other felonies aren't so bad either. And because of the whole context of what was happening then with all of that, I wound up in business arrangements, not just involving weed, but checks, credit cards, traveler's checks, all sorts of receiving this and that didn't belong to the people that were giving it to me. And I was involved with the Lebanese mafia. I'm Irish. the Italian mafia, a variety of biker gangs, the Black Panthers, the Laguna Brotherhood, and a bunch of people that wouldn't normally mix. And they certainly wouldn't have mixed with little white bread me. But, I felt the equivalent of a fictional character in a book who walked out of the pages of a book. The book was all about me. I was ludicrously self-centered and full of self in every possible way. Other people around me were just atmosphere. They were window dressing, and frankly, they were expendable, and this is not a real good way to live. But I didn't know that, I was around what I felt, I was a shy, frightened, emotionally dwarfed kid who quit living in the world to go live in a world of books, and alcohol flung me back into the world. But I needed a lot of medicine in me all the time to not know that I was actually a thinking and feeling human being. And somewhere along the line, a collision is going to happen with all of that. I had a friend who had a $200 a day heroin habit, and he tried to warn me. He came to me one day and he said, "Casey, man, your friends and I, we've been talking. We're worried about you, man. You're an alkie. You're a juicer. You overdo it. You turn into somebody else. Nobody knows who the hell you're going to be next." And I said, it's great, isn't it? This is... I mean, I didn't get it. I didn't get the connection. He said, "Well, you're ruining your liver." And I said, "Well, wait a minute now. You're strung out on smack. You're a two-time loser. I mean, you get shot at practically every couple of days. And you want me to, put down the old Pabst Blue Ribbon and this fistful of pills I got here? It's, frankly, Stoney, I don't get your point." And, and, I had a girlfriend who, she said to me, "When you die," she was a little peeved about something. I don't know, something I either did or didn't do. When you die, and it won't be long, I'm going to have you cremated and sell your ashes for $50 a spoon, because frankly, you're worth more dead than alive. And these are people that, they don't work in the field. They're not therapists, or, they don't have a vested interest in a better world. These are people that are hanging out over the edge, that are giving me the something's wrong sign, the "we're worried about you" sign. And my solution to that was always the same, which is, you're done. You are excommunicated. Don't bother even looking my way anymore. There's plenty of other window dressing to be had out here. And so I loaded a pile of people in the car one day. Things were going south in a hurry there, and there was going to be a big crunch, and I was going to get caught where the rubber met the road, and so it was time to come to the left coast, and we've zoom across country in about 3 days and bump into the ocean, and now we got to figure out what to do. So we know this guy named Mad Dog that lives on North Vermont Avenue. Let's move in with him So we get over there, and he lives in a one-room, $75 a month roach farm. So now there's 4 people living in the roach farm, but who cares? We're hardly ever there anyway. We're down at the Whiskey and Barney's Beanery and the rain check room and all those rotten dives where Holloway runs up and down from Santa Monica up to the Strip, and vice versa. And life is good again, because I brought my ways with me, which is to try to control and manipulate every conceivable situation. And everything was, going swimmingly. A lot of your famous dead rock and roll stars were still ambulatory at the time, and some of them were friends and acquaintances. I have absolutely no musical talent whatsoever, but at that time the message was in the music, and I wanted to be around the music, and I put myself there as much as I possibly could. But my good buddy got stabbed in the heart by his hooker girlfriend one night, and that was a mess, I went over to him a few feet away, and being my best friend and all, I pulled the old blade out of his chest. He looked pretty funny with a steak knife sticking in his chest, and that was bad. A lot of blood in a human being, and most of it came out. And I'll tell you, up to this point in my life, this guy was probably the best friend I ever had. And when he lived, by the way. He went up to live on the side of Mount Hood, and he won't come down because civilization was mean to him, But he went on to live a normal life. But my attitude was, hey, man, if you can't take a little steak knife in the old chest, you better get out of this fast-paced thing we're in, We're in a big hurry here to get this, monstrous amount of secret knowledge about how the universe works, and all of this, rhetorical hoo-ha that was built up around it. I'd run into some mob guys from the East Coast that had a bunch of contraband that they didn't know what to do with, and I did, and I became a middleman, and I moved in with the stabber's two best girlfriends, who were, hey, seemed like a good idea, and we had a beautiful Spanish-style home right off the Sunset Strip, and one of my clientele was a mailman who was boosting major credit cards out of the mail and giving them right to me. And so me and my two girlfriends would go on these lightning-fast shopping sprees. And first order of business is to rent a car, and when you're zooming around town with stacks of other people's credit cards. And of course, that rent-a-car is rented in somebody else's name, so no big hurry about getting that puppy back. So now I got another problem, is I got a fleet of overdue rent-a-cars sitting out in front of my pad. So if any of you was lucky enough to come to my place at that time, and there was a party going on most of the time, I would give you your very own rent-a-car for free. Just get it the hell out of here. And especially if you were too bombed to walk, You shouldn't be walking. Here's a car, And, I'm the same person that, as a Catholic youth, tried to memorize the Baltimore Catechism. I wanted to be spiritual. I wanted to know about God. I wanted to be on the inside track of the knowledge of how you get to be a good person. And all of that is gone. All of that is out the window. And now I could rationalize and justify any kind of behavior. And if you think about the way that you used to live and what you were thinking when you were doing it, you know that it's the same deal. I wasn't stealing anything. We were just liberating goods and services from under the heel of the fascist oppressor and the military-industrial complex that keeps us under the heel and all of that stuff. And you remember that kind of talk, And a friend of mine that was overseas came back, and he came over one day, and he said, Casey, who are all these people in your living room, man? This looks like rejects from the Manson family, this entourage you got here. And I said, these are my patients, Dennis. Don't insult them. They call me doctor, and I'm helping guide them through life. And he said, yeah, I get it. Okay. He said, listen, I have a better idea. Listen to my plan. If we join the merchant marines, we can smuggle jewels and drugs from the South Sea Islands and retire to Costa Rica and live like kings. What do you think? And I said, you know, that is a better idea. Who the hell are all these people in my living room? So we rented a Mercedes and jetted out of town and went up to San Francisco and Portland and Seattle and tried to get into the Merchant Marine, but you know, I had ground myself down to a swift and pale 130 pounds, which is like over 50 pounds less than I weigh right now. And so I was, you know, as Dennis said, he said, you look like you're all eyeballs and elbows there, bud, you know. And the Merchant Marine was already chock full of people that had a plan, you know. So 3 skinny guys with hair down to here come into their office. They're, you know, they get the picture before you can fill out the paperwork. And I lived on the streets of San Francisco then and sold my blood for $8, or, you know, not $8, $5 a pint. And tried to inflate it by $3, you know. It's that dynamic memory that glosses over things in time, I guess. And I was crazy, and I had to be led around, and I was really fried because the 60s were really good to me, you know. This was not good, and I bounced around. I wound up living in an abandoned train station in Chicago, and I could carry everything I owned in my hands. And I carried a straight-bladed knife, and I drank wine every day, that screw-top wine with integrity. And I remember once standing on an overpass, and it's raining. It's like 9 a.m. The traffic's going by on the Dan Ryan Expressway, and I'm looking down at all of these people. I don't care that I'm getting wet. You know, you can only get so wet. And I'm thinking, those poor fools, look at them, you know. They don't know what it's like to be really free like me. And, you know, I was, you know, I quarrel with some of the words in AA, like denial. I think it's delusion. You know, I wasn't denying that I had a problem that I knew, I was aware that I had. I was in such delusion I had no idea that I was wrong, that I was in... that I had a chronic, progressive, and fatal disease called alcoholism, and I didn't know anything about what to do about it. I knew there was a thing called Alcoholics Anonymous, but I didn't know I was an alcoholic, so what's the difference? I remember there's this old black and white movie called The Black Mirror. It was the story of Bill Wilson. I don't know that it's survived. I haven't seen it in a long time, but it was even before Days of Wine and Roses, and it was about the life of Bill Wilson and living in New York City and so on. And so I knew that there was Alcoholics Anonymous, but it didn't matter. And I came back to Los Angeles and got busted 3 times in 5 weeks for driving while intoxicated. And this introduced me to Alcoholics Anonymous and meetings and judges and cops and so on. And over the next 6 years, I went in and out and in and out, very much like the first speaker talked about. And I've been sober since November 28th, 1982, and almost 22 years sober. But that's 6 years. I went through 14 detoxes and 5 live-in rehabilitation programs in Camarillo State Hospital, psych wards. I had grand mal seizures. They repoed my bicycle in Santa Monica because they would have pried my shoes off, I guess, if they could, you know, repossess my right to walk around. And they got me once for sleeping in somebody's lawn, and when I went to sleep there, it was nice and cool on my cheek, and it was, you know, it'd been a rough night. I'd been kicked out of a party at gunpoint, you know, which was, I really have to be asked strongly to leave, I guess, sometimes. And so I'm napping in somebody's lawn north of Montana in Santa Monica, and it's dark when I go to sleep, but when I wake up, it's light, and I hear a car squeal to the curb, and I look over, it's the cops, and so I get up, and big track star, you know, I'm going to run, I'm going to get away, and you don't run too good right away when you're hungover and, you know, all of that, and I crash into this hedge, and, you know, the ficus is all up in my jacket, and I'm trying to get away, and the cops are laughing so hard they could hardly get the cuffs on. And one of the cops, he had arrested me before, Officer Bird in Santa Monica. And he said, what do you know, the master criminal is captured by vegetation, you know. Just really It was sad. But I started going to meetings after my last detox, and I was surrendered by alcohol enough in my last detox. On my way in, something happened that I think everybody needs to reach. For me, it was the bottom, and that bottom for me was that I knew that I was going to die drunk, and there was nothing that anybody could do about it, including me. That I was good at detox, I was good at rehab, I knew what enzymes did what to your liver. I have a good memory, or I did. I could memorize stuff. It makes you look smart even if you're an adult. And because, you know, I mean, I could get them all right on Jeopardy and win Trivial Pursuit, but I had no information that was doing me any good, you know, none whatsoever. And everything that I've gotten in the way of knowledge, I've gotten in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've gotten by saying, I don't know. I don't know anymore. I don't know what the next thing is to do. And I went back to meetings and being surrendered by alcohol, and people could see that I was different, you know. There's a couple of people in this room that saw me when I was drunk going in and out. And but when I came back, I was willing to do what I was told, and people said, get a sponsor. And I went home and spread out the phone numbers on the floor and looked at them, and one guy was a planner for the Mattel Corporation, that little toy company down in Hawthorne that makes the Malibu Ken and the Barbie doll and all that. And I thought, if I ask this guy, Keith, to be my sponsor, maybe they'll make a crazy Casey doll and I'll be immortalized. And that was my reason for asking him to be my sponsor. And so, you know, proving once again that motives don't count as long as you do the next indicated right thing. And you kind of got to watch out what you wish for. I've sponsored a number of people, some of them very creative people, and one of them made for a birthday of mine, a sober anniversary of mine, a Crazy Casey doll in a professional-looking box with a little Camarillo banner, a little jug of wine, little syringe, you know, with professional graphics on the box, you know, the pissed off rental car guy and the hooker with a knife and all. I mean, I can't throw it away, but I can't look at it either, so it's in my back bedroom up on high on a shelf facing the wall with a plastic bag over it, you know. It's in there, strangling. So, you know, that was the beginning, and obviously, you know, my life has changed in, as I said, in every way worth talking about, you know. Financially, materially, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, every way worth talking about. And it's all good, you know. I made amends to my family after I made financial amends. I found out that from people in my home group that they didn't want my money, they wanted their money back. And, you know, a little light bulb goes on for almost everybody the first time they hear that. And I made amends to my mother, who had passed away when I was supposedly cured one more time. In 1980, she passed away, and I breathed cheap vodka on her. She was dying, and I felt bad about that. I felt guilty about that. And I was taught by people in my home group how to make amends to people that aren't here anymore. And my father lived till January of 1998, and right about this time in 97, I was talking to him on the phone, and he said, you know, I know that for you, Alcoholics Anonymous is the vehicle by which you function in the world, the way that you operate, and that you're really into this thing. You know, he didn't get it at first. He sent me a bottle of wine for Christmas when I was 3 years sober. I said, Dad, I'm sober, I don't drink. And he said, not even a little wine with dinner? That's just sad, you know? So he really didn't get it. And but he said, I started making amends with him, and nobody could talk to him anymore. He was really an angry person. He was very difficult to talk to, and you had to hack your way through this flak screen he put up. And on Sundays after the golf tournament was on, because he loved golf, I would call him up and we'd talk about that, and then we would talk about other things, and I wouldn't let him go. And the two of the principles of the program that I was practicing in my worldview was perseverance and love. You know, you get one mother and one father, and if you can make amends to them, you do that. And my father said to me a few months before he died, "You're probably my best friend in the whole world." And that's Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, that's I wouldn't have done that. You know, I've had the opportunity to be back with my family. I've had an opportunity to have a wealth of friends wherever I go in Alcoholics Anonymous. I can go to a city where I've never been before and know not a soul, and I can call central office or intergroup and find out where the meetings are, and I go to those meetings and I find my family of understanding. The people in this room that have never laid eyes on me in their lives before know me better right now than a lot of my blood relatives, because we are emotionally wired very much the same. You're my family of understanding. You know, I'm a lucky guy. I'm a really lucky guy, and I think we all are. You know, we're blessed. For those of you that said that you're new here tonight, we don't want anything from you. We want to give you something that you don't yet have. You know, we want to give you the good life, a way to go without destroying yourself, without having to rebel against your own instinct at survival. It's a journey better than those hundreds of acid trips that I took. It's better than all of that stuff. I'm not saying that my worst day sober is better than my best day out there. That just isn't true. But I am comfortable in my life, and I know that with the help of the steps and a sponsor and a higher power and a home group, that nothing bad is going to happen, that things are going to happen as they're supposed to happen. And I want to thank you all for listening. Thanks.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.